You know that feeling when someone asks you a simple question and your mind just goes blank? Not because you don't know the answer, not because you're unintelligent, but something inside you just shuts off, like a fuse blowing in a house that had too much electricity running through it at once. You've probably tried to push through it, told yourself to focus, told yourself to try harder, and somehow that made it worse. There's a reason this happens, and it's not what you think. Let's talk about what's actually going on inside your brain when it shuts down. You're in the middle of something important, a conversation, a task, a moment that requires your full presence. And then, without warning, your thoughts stop forming. Words don't come. Decisions feel impossible. Even simple things like what to say next or what to do first feel like lifting something impossibly heavy. And here's the part that quietly destroys you. You watch other people function in those same moments, responding clearly, moving forward, and you wonder what is wrong with you. You start to build a quiet story about yourself, that you're not capable, that you freeze when it matters most, that some fundamental part of you is missing. And that story follows you into your next conversation, your next attempt, your next important moment. But here's what that story gets wrong. Your brain shutting down is not a weakness. It is a protection system, one that was designed to keep you safe, and it is doing exactly what it was built to do. This is called cognitive shutdown, and it is directly connected to something neuroscientists call the stress response threshold. Every person has a nervous system that is constantly scanning for threat, not just physical danger, but emotional danger too. The fear of judgment, the pressure to perform, the feeling of being overwhelmed by too much input at once. When your nervous system decides the environment is too threatening, it does not ask for your permission. It simply activates your survival circuitry. And when survival circuitry turns on, the thinking parts of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for language, logic, decision-making, and clarity, those parts get quieter because your brain is redirecting its energy towards self-protection. Your brain did not fail you. It chose you over the situation. Now here is the mechanism you need to understand, because this is where most explanations stop, and this is exactly where the real answer begins. Your brain operates like a power grid. There is only so much electricity available at any moment. When stress activates the amygdala, which is your brain's alarm center, it draws massive amounts of energy away from higher thinking. Researchers call this amygdala hijack. The alarm drowns out everything else. Think of it this way. Imagine a city with a limited power supply. When there's a crisis, the city cuts electricity to non-essential places. Libraries close, schools go dark, hospitals stay on. Because in a crisis, survival matters more than learning. Your brain does the same thing. Under pressure, it cuts power to the prefrontal cortex, which is your library, your school, your thinking center, and it powers up the fight or flight system instead. You go blank not because you're empty, but because your brain shut the lights off in the room where your thoughts live. And the more you judge yourself for going blank, the more your nervous system reads that judgment as an additional threat, which draws even more power away from clear thinking, which makes the blankness worse. It becomes a loop. This is why trying harder never helps in those moments. So what actually works? The answer is not about thinking better in the moment. It is about teaching your nervous system that the moment is safe. And there are specific ways to do that, grounded in how the brain actually responds to stress. Here is the first principle. Before you think, you regulate. When your brain is in shutdown, it is not a thinking problem. It is a physiological state. Your heart rate has risen, your muscles have tensed, your breathing has changed. The most direct way back to clarity is through the body, not the mind. One slow exhale, longer than your inhale, directly activates the vagus nerve. That nerve signals your nervous system to shift out of threat mode.
This is not a metaphor. It is a measurable physiological change that takes less than 30 seconds. So when you feel the blankness starting, you don't push, you exhale, long and slow, and you give your brain a moment to restore its power. The second principle, name the state without judging it. Research in affective labeling, a concept studied extensively by neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman, shows that when you name what you're feeling, it reduces the intensity of the amygdala response. Saying internally, even silently, "I'm overwhelmed right now, my brain is in protection mode," literally decreases the threat signal. But here's what most people do instead. They add a layer of shame. They say something like, "Why am I like this? I'm so useless. Here we go again." And shame is not a neutral observation. To the nervous system, shame feels like danger, so it fires the alarm louder. Name the state. Don't judge the state. Those are two completely different instructions to your brain. The third principle, reduce the cognitive load in the moment. One of the reasons your brain shuts down is because it is trying to hold too many things at once. Decision paralysis, which is a well-documented psychological phenomenon, increases exponentially with the number of options and stakes involved. When everything feels important, nothing can be processed. So you make one small choice, just one. Not the whole plan, not the whole conversation. One sentence, one action, one direction. You are not solving the problem. You are simply giving your nervous system a single foothold. And once the system has a foothold, it stabilizes. The lights begin to come back on. The fourth principle, understand your threshold, not your character. Your brain's shutdown threshold is not fixed. It is shaped by sleep, by accumulated stress, by how emotionally safe your environment feels over time, by whether you have been chronically running on a depleted nervous system. People who experience frequent cognitive shutdown are often people who have been operating under long-term pressure without adequate recovery. This means the pattern you've been treating as a personality flaw is actually a symptom of a nervous system that needs restoration, not correction. You don't need to fix who you are. You need to understand what your nervous system has been carrying. Now here is the single mental model that holds all of this together. Think of yourself as a house with a circuit breaker. The circuit breaker is not the enemy. It exists to protect the house from burning down. When it trips, it is doing its job. The solution is not to disable the circuit breaker. The solution is to understand what is drawing too much power, to reduce the load, and over time to upgrade the system so it can handle more. You are not a broken house. You are a house that has been asked to run too many things at once for too long without enough maintenance. And this is the thing that matters most. The moments when your mind goes blank are not the moments that define you. They are signals. They are your brain speaking the only language it has left when everything else feels like too much. When you learn to hear that signal without judgment, when you learn to respond with regulation instead of resistance, something begins to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly, the way real things change. You were never empty in those moments. You were simply a mind that had been carrying more than it had been given room to carry. And now you know where the lights went.